importance of accuracy, ethics, and compliance in every submission that we make to the committee. We are hoping to receive practical guidance on how to prepare transparent and well-structured documentation and proposals that withstand the scrutiny of the authorization committee. So we're not just looking at seeking approvals and getting ahead with transplants, but really, in the real sense of the word, upholding trust, credibility, and statutory compliance when it comes to living donor organ transplantation. Over to you, General Behera. Thank you so much for doing this for us, and over to you. Yeah.
Thanks, Ms. Pallavi, for a very generous introduction. And good evening to all who are there online to this session. I must firstly thank the Mohan Foundation and NATCO for having invited me to this to deliver this lecture. In fact, when Pallavi contacted me, there was a stray remark by me that authorization committees also have a personality, and that somehow may have struck a chord with her when she said, that's a very interesting perspective. Honestly, I didn't have the structure of this lecture thought out at that point of time. I did agree. So with that introduction, I would now like to, can I share my screen, please?
Yeah, please go ahead and share. I think, yeah.
Right. As can
Yeah.
The topic is Authorization Committee Insights, lessons for accurate, ethical, and compliant document. I would request,
Yogita, you need to mute people, please.
Yes, ma'am, I'm doing it.
Please make sure nobody is speaking in between.
So, honestly, this lecture, when I sat down to work on it, I realized that authorization committees come in various shapes, structures with different kind of power dynamics, and I can't be making a comment on their behalf. And do the transplant coordinators really need to be taught about forms and all that? They are masters in that. I mean, their insight is possibly unmatched in this whole system that engages in the administration of transplant approvals. So do they need to be taught about Form 1, 2, 3, 11, and all those Form 5, 20, 21, 18, 19? I realize possibly they have tremendous amount of information on that. So there was one aspect that I thought that we need to go ahead with this presentation was, why doesn't it move? Just one sec. Yeah. Need to that in this whole process, there were too many humans engaged in this documentation that runs through ethics, complex legislations, legal aspects, procedures, too many human beings involved, and our documentation finally is a reflection of how we engage with each other. And as those involved in the process would have realized that it is the engagement and interactions with the committees, with the patients, with the donors, that is the basis for the initiation of this documentation and the integrity, the quality of these documentation. Before I proceed further, I would like to pause for a moment and salute the transplant surgeons, anesthetists, nephrologists, transplant pathologists, the nurses, the technicians who are doing some amazing work in this country. whose outcomes are global standards, comparable with the best anywhere in the world, and we are so proud of it. It adds to our soft power as a emerging power. And it is because of them that administrators like us and the transplant coordinators function. And it is the confidence of the community, the patient, the world that comes to us for the surgery. It is not because of us that the patients come, it is because of them. So they need to be, we a lot of salute them for what they do. And it is we who supports this complex process to be where we need to keep them away to do what they do best and deliver to society a kind of output that we also are party to, and we take shared pride in it. So that having been said, the intent was that to rise beyond the routine documentation that we talk about, forms, affidavits, and all that, and go to something about the behavioral aspect, where there are too many human beings involved in this. So today, my intent is as a sensitization to certain behavioral science approach that would supplement all this that we do, and which is actually very, very essential. If that aspect is handled well, we have a win-win situation. But as I made a mention about it, the contents of this lecture truly don't reflect the function of any specific authorization committee, any hospital. They're purely reflections shared on the basis of my accumulated experience, have been a behavioral science teacher, and academic insights into human interactions in the transplant approval process. And also, what I say today is not prescriptive or a guidance for a transplant program. It is just for the sensitization of the coordinators how to manage the human aspects, which would finally help in the document of the documentation.
ஒண்ணும் பண்ண முடியாது.
I would limit my presentation to the perspective that relates the coordinator with the authorization committees. And authorization committees generally, as authorization committees, are supposed to handle the transplant processes or the approval processes as given in the THOTA. There would be no discussion on the deceased donation process or those approved by the competent authority. I'm also aware that transplant committees, while defined in the THOTA, do have different structures or other composition at the state level, and the functionalities are also very different. It's not uniform. The states have their own reasons to do it. The compositions are also very different. So there is one aspect that I have not looked into is from the transplant, from the authorization committee's perspective. It is entirely from the transplant coordinator's perspective. So the outline of this presentation, as I said, we would not be discussing forms and all that, is the behavioral keys to clarity in the whole process that would help in the documentation. Who are the stakeholders and how the power dynamics, how it interplays between them. Look at few guardrails for good practice that some of it is done, some of it is not done beyond the forms. How does the future look in this whole process? Are there technology that would at some point come in? At some place it is already in. And finally, sum it up. The behavioral keys to clarity was understanding the human side of the transplant decision. And I would first part of the behavioral perspective was to discuss very briefly about transaction analysis. I'm aware in this audience there are coordinators who are trained in clinical psychology, and all of them would be very familiar, in fact, would be more knowledgeable on these matters. But this is one aspect developed in the 50s, found popularity in the 80s, and possibly today is taught because it is easy to understand, internalize, and apply in simplistic organizational situations. There are new tools that have come out, but it is like that Dalton's law that atom is indivisible, and that is where we start our atomic science, whereas it has still, science has gone beyond that. So the first part is the transaction analysis. And this analysis, as I said, all of it is from the perspective of the transplant coordinator and his engagements with those that he has influence over. I mean, he would have influence over the recipient, the donor. He would have limited influence over the authorization committees. So all of us have these three, ego states from which we communicate: the parent, adult, and child. And they coexist in all of us at the same time. It's not as if that I'm adult, so I would only have a parent ego state when I communicate. I could very well have a child ego state when I'm communicating, and a child may have a parent ego state when it is communicating. So these are distinct and separate source of behavior based on past experience. Maybe I need to give an example in this so people understand. Like, is it possible that I can behave from the child ego state, being a adult senior citizen, and my daughter who is young, can she behave from the parent ego state? Yes, it happens. My daughter will suddenly say, Papa, no more roti. You're growing fat. Now that's from the parent ego state. And I would say, Acha, theek hai, koi nahi." That's from the child ego state. So it is how you react with what kind of mindset. So as you can see, the parent, adult and child, the parent is that, like every parent, nurturing, supportive, critical and judgmental as well. I mean, any parent. And the child is rebellious, detached, interestingly creative and innovative. Sometimes like, ye kaise kar diya, pata nahi chala. And in between, we have the adult ego state, which is responsible for own behavior and is largely the mature and data-based kind of transactions from one to other. So essentially, it means that when there is communication from one of these ego states, it is addressed to a complementary ego state. That is, if the parent is in you is talking, it is addressing it to the child, and the child in you is talking, it is addressing it to the parent. And when the adult in you is talking, it is addressing to the other adult. Largely, the understanding is that when the transactions are from the adult ego state, the outcomes of that communication are the best. And the desire is that, like the transplant coordinator, he is the one who's trained in this. The patient is not trained. The recipient is not trained in this. So he has to know, identify his ego state. Firstly, that one has to be aware, and also the other person ego state. And the aim is that whatever ego state one is communicating from, finally to veer them around to come into the adult ego state where rational discussion takes place. If somebody communicates from the parent to the child and the other person communicates from the adult to adult, that is a crossed transaction, and the communication is likely to fail. But as I said, this is mostly in the psychological counseling that one looks at avoiding a cross communication. Whereas in such simplistic transplant coordinator and the patient kind of transactions or the donor transactions, it is desirable that to respond initially from the complementary ego state and go back to the adult ego state and try to get the other person to adult, because that is the state in which the best communication takes place. So transaction analysis, as this was by great clinical psychologist Eric Byrne, primarily says that all of us, even in our domestic communication, must learn to recognize our state and ego state from which we are communicating, and also look at the other person's ego state, and accordingly carry out a transaction if you want that communication, that transaction to be complementary and successful. So often we don't want that. We want the transaction to fail, and obviously we will do it from another one. We just mentioned about complementary transaction and cross transaction. This whole science is a very complex and has more aspects to it of ulterior transactions, angular transactions. We'll not go into this. I just kept it simple, and this is what is applicable for a better understanding with the patient and the donor, because the if you understand and you are able to connect in the right ego state, your capturing of information on the basis of which the documents happen will be very successful. And interestingly, in the documentation here has a lot of scrutiny to it because of all the scars of the past due to scams and all that. There is a lot of scrutiny into it. These documents have to be legally compliant, have to be ethically correct. So there's a huge amount of scrutiny to it. And now those scrutiny can be very easily sort of countered by the first aspect of our behavioral approach, that is the transaction analysis. So, as I said, as the transplant coordinators, keep the communication in the adult-adult zone, and as far as possible, move the other person into the adult zone where the best communication takes place. The second part that I thought I would like to talk about is a model that was again developed around the same time in the US after World War. The whole world was going through a turmoil. New knowledge was coming out, including penicillin, if you recall, in 1945. And this was the time, 50s, on one coast of the US where Byrne was working. On the other coast, Harry Ingham and Joseph Luft had come up with this model about the panes, or rather the windows of our personality, where they identified that everyone has these four areas, in our personality. The first one is the arena or the open area where you know about yourself and the other person also knows about you. Like we say, बहुत खुला आदमी है, सब कुछ उसके बारे में बड़ा easily पता चलता है. Or there is the other area where I try to keep things to myself and I create image which is incorrect in the mind of the other person. Now, this is possibly the area which we call the facade or the hidden, which has to be tackled in the case of a donor or a recipient. They possibly, this is all because we have been stung by various scams. They are hiding things which they know and they're trying to hide from us. Then there is the blind area. It's my blind spot. I don't know about that area, but the others can see it. All of you must be seeing certain tics and things that I have when I'm delivering this lecture, which is not known to me. And the only way I can know about it is when you tell me about it. And when you tell me about it, you have to tell me in a state of the transaction analysis, which is best acceptable to me, that I agree to it. And the same way, how do I probe into the hidden area that is not confessing, not confiding? How do I create that he shares that information? So, and there is one area that is unknown to everyone. I mean, the others, myself. And so often we question, I'm surprised he did that. He also would say, I'm surprised I did that in that situation because I didn't know that I would do that. And others also never expected him to do that. So these four quadrants are not equal size. In every person, it will be of a different size. The aim is for us who are students of this, who have studied this, to increase the arena. And if you increase the arena, if you notice, it will also eat into the facade or the hidden area, also increase the blind spot, possibly reduce the unknown also. And that is the idea. Because the exchange of information best happens when my arena is most open, it is the biggest in size. So the hidden area are suggest, and in our transactions with the donor and recipient, the hidden area, that is where he's trying to conceal information, possibly will be suggested. Now, these are not perfect answers. I mean, everyone is made differently. Everyone would do it differently. Everyone would engage with the patient differently. Our language skills, our interpersonal skills, our articulation, our body language, huge complex way that we engage with others. And all of these are learnable skills provided we make that effort. So the hidden area are suggested by hesitation, short answers, and most importantly, possibly which stands out is avoiding eye contact. If he's avoiding this, something is wrong. There's something that he's keeping in his, his hidden area. How do I get into it? And the blind area is suggested by his body language, which doesn't match with his talk and the way his demeanor. And that is that firstly, the transplant coordinator has to understand his arena, his open quadrant, and as well as those of the the recipient or the donor. So as I said, the trick is that how do you gently move the relevant details from the hidden and blind into the open quadrant and expand it? And two words that stand out, we often use, possibly we don't realize that it has any kind of meaning in this, is the hidden quadrant that he's concealing. The approach to it is with tact, without being judgmental, without being critical, and without making him feel embarrassed and all that. Tact is something that we very often say, and it just means how do we say it? How do we time it? What kind of language? Not all of us are blessed with those skills of, perfect kind of language and all that. Many of us are blessed. Many of us learn it, and it is a learnable skill. Whereas the blind spot is something we call diplomatic. ये बहुत diplomatic बंदा है, and the word is often used in the international kind of agreements where you don't agree, yet you get a thank you. So those are those strategic level issues that how can I, without offending him, he feels that he has not been sort of short charged, and yet I get my things done. And all this, so does this have a bearing on how the authorization committee functions? As I said, the authorization committee are differently positioned, structured. Some places where there is the hospital-based authorization committee, there are few members from the hospital. Out of those 7, 3 possibly are from the hospital. And yet, 4 of them are not from the hospital. So despite being a hospital authorization committee, it is an external kind of committee which has its independent status. But there is a element of familiarity of the coordinator with the hospital-based authorization committee. Whereas in the state level or the district level, things are very different.
Bangalore,
Sorry.
Yogita, how are people getting unmuted? Could you please control that?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it meant for me?
Sorry, Jen.
Yeah. So these authorization committees are committees where there are a group of people who are experienced in handling complex and ambiguous situations. In the past, some of them are bureaucrats, doctors. Some of the states have in the authorization committee police officers. Some have lawyers, standing counsels. Some have social workers. So see how the kind of domain experts that there in the authorization committee, and their engagement interaction would shape the personality of or every organization has a kind of personality. So TC, I mean a transplant code, needs to be able to identify the personality of the authorization committee, and they are not uniform. The best part about TCs is some of them would have moved from one place to another place where they would have handled hospital-based authorization committee, they would have handled state level, they would have handled the district level. So their experience is huge in this matter. And I think they will understand what I'm meaning in this. And because of their interactions amongst them, there is a character of this authorization committee. And this collective personality must be understood. So when they have a character and personality, they possibly also could be talking from when they engage, would be talking from an ego state. It is an accepted thing that organizations at a superior hierarchical level have gone into a permanent parent ego state. Your headquarters, your senior levels, the authorization committees, they've gone into permanent parent ego state, demanding, discerning, and the process of this transplant administration has such stringent demands, and there is the kind of there's an element of risk that you feel that things can go wrong, and it can be very, very unpleasant, with the whole ugliness being amplified by the social media. So everyone is extra careful that we should not land up in a situation where things can go wrong, and the potential is very high. So now we come to the interplay between the two essential organizations in this whole transplant approval process, that is the authorization committee and the transplant coordinator. I've already said the external, even if they are hospital-based, independent status, and it's unlikely that the hospitals can influence a district or a state level as well as a hospital level authorization committee. They have a very, very serious mandate to uphold. That is the statutory mandate, and the prevention of abuse and safeguard the ethics. And the committee level functioning give them the great legitimacy. So if there's one single person acting, you can always sort of say he possibly was biased, he was influenced, there was parochialism, all that kind of stuff. But a committee level functioning which has so many people from diverse fields, senior administrators who come in with great sense of responsibility to see that things don't go wrong, it gives us great legitimacy and accountability. And the government is very confident that, okay, there's some serious stuff happening here, and we have put the best of the guys there. And embassies are also happy that the whole case is being dealt at a committee level, which is statutorily defined and works with great responsibility. So this collective approach, of doctors, administrators, IS officers, police officers, lawyers, gives it a multiple lens. And each of them has seen things life different, seen things in their
మొబైల్ పట్టుకోవడానికి వెళ్ళి ఎగ్జిట్
has seen things professionally from a different lens, and all of them put together their lens reduces the blind spots. Blind spots is what I don't know about myself, or this organization doesn't know about itself. What happens is, with these kind of people, someone will catch on to it and somebody will be having a better perspective on it. So therefore, there is a very balanced and nuanced assessment of each case, and gives a lot of confidence to the system that the final outcome and approval is done by at some great scrutiny, great responsibility. There are issues with the authorization. Please understand, the coordinators have many occasions to engage with the patient, casual engagement, serious engagement during their counseling sessions, once, twice. Many other times they come in, ask with queries, submission of documents. But the authorization committee just has one opportunity to do it. Obviously, they will want that everything should come to them perfect, that we said, that documentation. And imagine dumping a file of 500 page, 50.
You got muted, General Behera, by mistake.
Yes, sir. I'm so sorry.
Is okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
We can.
Sorry, I don't know how that happened. Okay, so they have that very short window to design on this case, where they have not had any previous engagement, neither with the coordinator, not with the hospital, not with these patients. And they got a bunch of thick file that, has some medical documents over 30, 40 pages, and also some 40, 50 pages of administrative documents. So it is actually unfair to demand and expect them to handle it within that window that they have. So essentially, if, it will be acknowledged and appreciated that ultimately it is the quality of documentation prepared by the coordinator, which is the bedrock on which judicious decisions are made by the committee. Committee is reliant that it has to be a perfect set of document. And it is not for the committee to reject. The committee is wanting to prove that the whole thing is the mandate is that we must ensure that more and more people are benefited by the surgery. There is a need for kidneys, there is a need for surgery, and there are cases which would slip through for scams, but there are many who, given the kind of demographic profile we have, level of education, rural background, poor documentation, so this is where the transplant coordinator steps in to see that the quality of documentation is so good, the whole thing speaks for itself. It is not a kind of bureaucratic bundle that is dumped in front of the authorization committee, but something that speaks so well that the committee is very confident to approve it. And that makes the committee very happy because that is their intent. It is not to reject, it to safeguard the legitimacy of the whole system, because this approval is the one that lets the surgery take place, is the final step. So they have that very, very important, you know, reason to be little detailed in the scrutiny, and it will depend. So therefore, I know this audience possibly has a lot of transplant coordinators. You're a crucial cog in this complex system. You are in the middle of the whole thing. There is the approving authority, someone with a lot of power and all that, the authorization committee, and there are the patient and the donor at at one end, and there's a lot of mistrust. Are they trying to slip in? Is there a scam? Is there some kind of fraud happening at the back of your mind? And there is a hospital also. There is a hospital wanting that things should happen fast, the marketing department. You also get the calls from various influential authorities, sometimes threatening, sometimes intimidating. Please, this is getting delayed. So I can understand the transplant coordinator. He's the one who is in the center of this whole process. And at the end, it is looks as if the whole thing was done by the authorization committee, but I'm very convinced it is not. Had it not been for his wonderful kind of documentation, the authorization committee would have taken much more time than they generally do, and the way the whole things are processed. So what reaches the authorization committee are very, very refined, filtered, perfect documents. Nobody questions the transplant coordinator's knowledge because they are the only ones in the whole system who's trained. Rest all walk into it, are taught, trained, pick up some book, read. But this is the only set of people who are trained, deeply knowledgeable on all aspects. They are the go-to when somebody wants to know about on which page it, what does that section mean or whatever, where is it written, this or that. There was one aspect I thought that the training curriculum is tilted towards deceased donation, whereas the practical workload is living donation. There is nothing wrong this. The whole intent of the THOTA was, and the tilt towards deceased donation, that is what will give us. The problem is the deceased donation. If there was deceased donations taking place, all this fraud shot would have reduced, and this living donor issues also would go down. So therefore, they focus on that. But whatever reason that those are very challenging issues, they don't happen so often. It is more often that the living donor transplant happens, and something for which he was not trained and by that I mean, has he been given the training to engage at the behavioral level with all these human beings that are in the process? I did look up the syllabus. Maybe, I mean, it was a very casual look into the syllabus. I thought that it could do better with this aspect. So the coordinators are, too many roles: counselor, guide, educator, compliance officers, rolled everything, and everyone is after him. The patient, the recipient, hospital, jaldi karo, ye kya, why are you delaying it? And he's the one who is where everything starts. So, and what starts is actually facilitating a second life for our patients. What is it? I mean, he's the one who starts it. The surgeon will do the surgery, and someday all this happens, and there's a patient who is now having a better quality of life and better longevity. So there is this, he has to do this great balancing act under pressures of time, patient, and hospital, which we have discussed. So the document is not just about papers and signatures. It is about ethical integrity, and he's the gatekeeper. What enters into the system? How do you detect what the forms do not reveal? And as I said, there are a lot of things that don't get revealed in that hidden area of the donors and the patient. And also, a conscientious transplant coordinator would look into what are the concerns. And I am very convinced that the concerns of the authorization committee, be where they may be located or in whatever profile, would be to see that there is a perfect document that is coming there. And he must ensure that there is everything is disclosed what otherwise would have been hidden. There is clarity, neutrality. That is one very important aspect of the coordinator. He is with the patient. He has to appear that he is recording truth. He is recording not what the hospital wants, and also he is not recording what the patient wants. He is a neutral person, and possibly, he's the one who asked those questions that no one thought to ask. And when he records all this and the AC sees it, there's huge amount of confidence that this is a wonderfully processed file. So it not some mechanical method of some signatures and papers put together. It is a narrative that tells a story, and the gaps that are sort of detected from those hidden areas and the blind areas are filled up with affidavits and legal validations. The coordinators are very well trained on these matters, so how to cover it up. And the challenges of the gaps are huge. Some of those gaps are very innocent gaps. We know, all of us have seen how our Aadhaar card names don't match. Our PAN card doesn't match with our Aadhaar card. The date of birth doesn't match in the two. It is not as if there was some malafide in the whole thing. It could be. Fakery could be there. Forgery could be there. But most often, a system that captures, sadly, we have to admit that it is not all that efficient. And it doesn't take care of, mistakes. And many people do not have the capacity to go back and correct it. Therefore, the challenge to have the eye to look for those gaps is what the transplant coordinators must develop. Essentially, the whole process is the establishment of the identity of the donor. Largely, it's a donor-focused system. The patient is sick, he needs a kidney. Well, where is the point in that? But is a donor. Is he the person who they say he is? Is the relationship correct? What about the correctness of the documents? And sometimes the documents are foreign. We don't know how that country issues the documents, who signs it, what kind of affidavit is issued. Not many countries have developed systems where all this can be taken care. The systems are quite porous at times, and there could be slip throughs of such scams, and we have seen all that happening. The focus is on what is the motivation to donate. How often do you think altruism is still yet to, at least in this country, is miles? It'll take some time. We don't have too many fathers. Francis, I'm missing out his name. He's from the Kerala, who was
Chiramal.
altruistic to.
Father Chiramal, I think. Father Chiramal is name.
So we are still way ahead from that, and once that comes in, all the scam shams things will take care. Love and affection, how do you decide that? Sometimes the relationship is very distant. And coercion, now the very, very kind of nuanced thing. We all know coercion can be there in the families. And yet we say love and affection would be very natural. We understand our social fabric. We understand our gender issues. We understand how the matriarchal system drives it. But how best can you handle it? How best can you elicit that coercion? It's not an easy call. And at the end of it, no concerns of commerce. In today's world, how do you know the bank account that he gave you is the only bank account has? Some people come from foreign countries, they say we have no banks. There's no way to verify whether. And it's surprising that anybody can function without a bank these days. And there's this term red flag is often used, and those are the ones that have to be addressed by the transplant coordinator in what he sends. So when the AC sees it, they're able to take care. Okay, most of the red flags have been identified, analyzed, and resolved. So this transaction doesn't take place. So often is the transplant coordinator doesn't find a place inside the room where the authorization committee meets. Sometimes he might find a place, but he might be in the background sitting as a silent spectator. But his influence is there by the quality and completeness of his case file. And also some of them with their experience, with their articulation, with their knowledge would have some personal credibility and familiarity with the staff of the authorization committee. It is essential that transplant coordinators make this effort to develop the personal credibility. It requires tremendous amount of effort to improve, language skills, articulation, writing skills, familiar with the law, and the demeanor and personality to be pleasant when interacting, so that people look forward to interacting with you. So he should not appear as if he's a, advocate of the hospital trying to push through approvals. No, he should appear as a neutral guy who's seen the best, done the best to analyze this case, looked into all aspects, the red flags, the concerns, analyzed them, put out, and still there would be some issues that will need a kind of decision by why else did we put authorization committee with such people with so much of experience? Because sometimes if everything is to be done and put on a plate, then the committee could have been of a lesser power structure. But there will be times when the committee will have to handle complex issues, and which the transplant must highlight. He says, okay, this here is it. And surely with their experience, they would be able to look into that. This is very basic. The authorization committee and the relation with transplant coordinator, as soon through the organizational behavior lens, the authorization committee holds, the formal decision power. उसने जो बोलना है वही होना है. No amount of influence of the transplant coordinator can change anything, though he holds the informational power. Everyone admits that, as far as knowledge goes, he is the best guy. And they would project authority. They would be always in a parent ego state. They would be looking at minor mistakes. It may not be appealing. Might express their kind of displeasure with that. And the transplant coordinator should be cautious that he doesn't slip into the advocacy. Sir, sorry, sir, there is urgency. There are situations of urgency, ill health, financial reason. There's so many cases of situation urgency. But that is understandable rather than appearing to be deviate from the neutral personality to a advocacy role. So the guiding principle for the coordinator would be stay in the adult, fact-based, reference-based, in a calm tone, respect the parent status of authorization committee. As I said, every superior hierarchical organization in the country or through is generally in a permanent parent ego state. Do not sort of push the risks under the carpet. Bring them out, analyze them to the best. And that openness would make it more trustworthy. Be a facilitator and a navigator. Do not try to steer that ship. Let that ship be steered by the committee. You just see that they are on the course. जो भी चाहिए उनको सामान कौन सा मिल जाए. Now we come to the aspect where largely it would be about the transplant coordinator and the patient and the donor. And a few guardrails, I'm sure many of them would have their own guardrails for good practice. It is attention to minor details, often ignored in our speed to finish things and the pressures, jaldi karo. Often these things get overlooked. But uh, everything, one mistake in the whole this system where there is so much of mistrust, suspicion, scrutiny, actually sort of brings down the credibility of the whole process. I would like to start from this counseling, the point of maximum leverage. This is the start point where everything, downstream depends on it. The forms, the documents filling up, the quality of the documents, the quality of the file, and the way the file reaches the authorization committee, and their ease which they can decide is dependent on this behavioral. It's a behavioral encounter. It is not about tumhara naam kya nahi hai. There is so much that has to be unearthed from that hidden area and that blind area. Open area is okay. Open area is largely there'll be some documents in front of you to have that eagle's eye to be able to look whether there's a right document. Systems are there for verification of document, third party. Then every hospital has its own registration system by biometrics, so that at no point should somebody slip through. But we have great fraudsters who find ways to circumvent these things.
General Behera, I would like you to leave some time for discussion. People, so you have how many slides left?
Yeah, I'll just quickly finish it off.
All
So, okay, anything that is missed out in this would be a result in flawed documentation. So this we have already said that the final decision depends on how well that file speaks with clarity and integrity, and the donor focus should not be sort of missed out. So the file should not be a bureaucratic bundle, but a narrative of due diligence. Few aspects of the counseling is there's not an interrogation. Sometimes we try to intimidate, bully, and it's also not a therapeutic counseling. And both of them are different. This behavioral science exercise must be done, as I said, so that despite having the moral authority over the patient and the donor, he should appear neutral, trustworthy, and two things: this empathy and scrutiny. Now, empathy is that sort of allows the patient to open up his all those areas that we are talking about, the hidden areas, the unsaid that is there, and scrutiny also is with the same time looking at all those sort of nuanced body language changes and all that. So I've already mentioned about tact and diplomacy. The questions must be framed with curiosity, without being intrusive and without appearing suspicious. Open-ended to begin with, and finally the specifics. Levels of literacy is a big problem in this country. Sometimes our patients are not able to understand. So, and there are no tools to decide on financial inducement. Mostly there are circumstantial evidence, but and often the details are not there. My slideshow has been stopped or something. Yeah. This issue about how much time should be there in the counseling, how often should you do it? Should it be joint or separate? And there would be those pressure to quickly get done with it. But as I said, this is the most important thing which decides on downstream. So it should be long enough to allow comprehension and not just sign karo yahan pe, angutha lagao, and little more longer sessions with all those other than near related and foreign nationals. And the literature, some of the literatures say that there should be at least 2 sessions for those which are complex, other than near related, and the foreigners, may be spaced out over 2 days to allow a cooling off for the initial after the initial session, so that heat of the moment he said something, then he comes back, so sorry sir, yesterday there was this. These are certain risks. I think I'll skip this. These are the risks that must be looked into by the coordinators and kept as a record for training for future, and to look at every case. These are the potential risks, and to identify if there's a risk and we should have a solution for it. How do we handle this risk? Yes, this is one aspect, the copy paste trap, and all of us do that. Most of the previous forms are copy pasted, and while there are the small and unintentional typographical errors, it erodes the capability, the credibility. If it is frequent, it becomes a pattern and nobody likes it. And often the discussion in the authorization committee shifts focus from the substantive merit to trivialities, and the whole discussion is now goes on a different track because of some unintentional and small typographical error. You've got to look at how do you avoid this. There are checklists, there are, get someone else to read it. There are grammar checking tools. There are also, AI tools. Please look into it. And this is about the executive summary. I think this is already being done. So there are certain aspects of this that they must look into, because this is the document that takes on, it's a purpose built, reduces the cognitive load on the AC, and they can't be reading all their documents in that. So this makes it easy for them to give a decision. It must, as I said, always look at the red flags. What are the ambiguous items? See how they were explained. And now this is, we are coming to the end. This is about the future. Some of the like AI and social media. Is there a role of AI? Yes, AI is being used to a very great extent in the other parts of the transplant process of matching donors, outcomes, the risk of rejection in the clinical processes. In the administrative processes in our country, we still do not have a sanctioned way of doing it. Some of it doesn't need to be sanctioned. Like it's like whether you use a typewriter or a computer. Nobody said that you should use a computer. You can still use a typewriter. So there are great qualities of the AI that it should be used as a thought partner. It has great speed in documentation and auto compilation, and it can build up that executive summary with amazing clarity, taking all aspects of legal, ethical, and psychological aspects, flag the anomalies. But yes, somebody has to keep check on it. It can't be allowed to decide on its own. It can go wrong, throw up wrong data. There would be bias, if it is trained that women are generally donating more and receiving less, it will say that there's something wrong with this file. So, and over a period of time, maybe we get so dependent that there is a erosion of our human judgment. There are issues of data privacy and loss of empathy also. Future role, you can't say that there is no role. Throughout the world, fraud is being examined through AI now. Now, the potential for fraud is very high. Somewhere we have to use it. The fraud risk dashboard, it will come at some point. It's a great tool for training and translation. Is there a social media aspect? The young generation will understand, but Facebook, everyone has an online presence. And if you see the HR, immigration, fraud investigation, social security clear, everyone is looking into people's social media accounts. They want to know your social media account because so much of story is out there. It is a major window to personal identity. I am sure some of the transplant coordinators who are from this generation that uses social media would be having informal checks, but it can't be documented as yet because still doesn't find the sanction. There are privacy issues in there. But it can be a great supplementary verification tool, identity for relationships, socio-economic background, hidden red flags, and when fraud is suspected. It is being used by the police, security forces. Why not us? But this is all in the future, as I said. There are these issues, as I said, of the risk and pitfalls. So finally, what is it that we said? Each case is just not a file. It's with which a decision taken by the approval authorization committee based on what is prepared will echo for years in the lives of our patients. And the audience that is sitting there, your actions protect not only patients, but the very trust the society places on organ transplant systems. Let us all operate from the human perspective to make the documentation so good that it is a win-win for all. I have highlighted few references. I don't know whether this will be available to the audience. There is a need to read up on this. Some of it that I said is from textbooks, and these are certain references of articles that are there in some with Indian data. And if there's, it would be worth going through it. They're very interesting to go through. I am now open for questions and comments if there is time for that.
Thank you
I'm
so
done.
much, General Behera. If you could just minimize the presentation, that was an extremely interesting presentation. Actually, it's quite fascinating that you are encouraging us to look at this whole process through the lens of these psychological models. I'm a psychology student myself, and also been part, had the opportunity to be part of an authorization committee for some time. And I found the process so dry and so driven towards making the transplant happen. And the focus is so much on legality and documentation that I don't know in all of that, how do we bring these lenses? A lot of people are leaving. I just want to say from this masterclass onwards, we will be giving e-certificates. Yogita is going to be posting a short feedback link. Just fill it up and then you will get your certificates, e-certificates. We have a lot of senior coordinators here, Dr. Behera, and I really would like them to, I know this, Dr. Amit is there, Vrinda, I saw Sanjay, Rakibe. Anybody would like to unmute themselves and respond to General Behera's presentation and what he spoke about.
Before
Anybody here?
that, I would like to acknowledge and sort of salute them because see, they're so important a cog in this whole process, and the silent workers behind the whole thing, and what they're doing is amazing. So
And it's not
salute.
easy because, they are part of a system that is keen to make the transplant happen. And the whole focus is for the transplant to happen. So in all of that, how to look at, okay, you can look at documentation and legalization, but how do you look at donor advocacy or donor autonomy, all of those things, I don't know. But yeah, somebody wanted to say something? We have some questions.
I'm Dr. Dua from Apollo. I am listening to
Sure.
my colleague, Dr. General Behera. I'm really very highly impressed the way he has put forward all the points in a very simple and elegant way, very understandable way to everybody. I really congratulate him. I just want to say one thing that he has covered, of course, but still I want to say that you're talking with the donor and the patient and even the one who is giving consent is you pick up the things easily by your own personal, your own experience. Not in this overall experience, clinical experience will definitely tell you where something is going wrong. In spite of best documentation being presented, a lot of effort being done for the presentation of these documents by all our coordinator team, still sometimes you have to use your own IQ, whether what we are doing with absolutely right way. Though mistake do happen here and there, but that's process we should be will come with the due course of time and all these examples. But the way Dr. General Behera has put forward are really very commendable, and will give a lot of sort of not only knowledge but lot of his own experience and overall get up and overall intake will be very, very positive in the days to come for everybody, all those who have attended. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Any of the senior coordinators that are here would like to please unmute themselves.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, good evening. I am Colonel Shalimol from SK Hospital, Trivandrum, sir. Sir, actually, we are doing the transplant from abroad also for foreign patients. So last time I had a problem. The patient was from the patient was from Bangladesh, and we have cleared everything. When I reached authorization committee, they were asked me you have to get an e-apostille or signed by the Indian Embassy at Dhaka. But nowhere it is written that the patient from Dhaka has to get the signature or e-apostille from the Indian Embassy at Dhaka. Even though it was a problematic and the patient was here for 3 months, the patient went back because her this one problem was deteriorating and she went back. After that, we approached everywhere in Indian Dhaka, Indian Embassy Dhaka, but they have never responded. Then from some ambassador, we could reach there. By the time they have signed and kept it, sent us, the patient has gone to her own place. So the nowhere it is written that Indian Embassy has to sign only medical visa. Their medical visa has to be signed from the Indian Embassy from Dhaka. But I don't know, sir, how far it is wrong or right. I faced really a problem I have faced.
Ma'am, you said Colonel.
Yeah, sir, I am Colonel Shalimol from SK Hospital. I just got retired after 2 years back. I joined. I was in the transplant center in Army also. So
Okay, great.
I took it as a passion. I am a chief coordinator of hospital, but I took it as a passion. Now I am doing, and 3-4 foreign patients we had. This was the problem I faced.
I'd like to just say that I did give a disclaimer that I would not like to comment about how transplant committees handle their processes.
Yes.
And let me assure you, they would not be unreasonable for any reason. There
That
has to be something that is there. And I know this is a postal business, but let me say, I honestly, firstly, your question, I'm not wanting to comment on it. Because there is an authorization committee duly constituted and staffed by some senior administrators who have amazing experience. And they want to protect the system and protect the patient as well. Please understand that. Do not look at them at an adversarial kind of, "Ye kahan likha hai, wo dikhao, wo dikhao." They won't have said it. They are accountable. I mean, the government is going to ask them question. Everyone is going to ask them question. They're accountable. They would not take it so lightly and be so discriminatory and arbitrary. So honestly, I will not want to comment on this, but I will only say, please do not look at the authorization committee so much of adversarial view.
No, sir, it is not, sir. Because of that, sir, the patient has come here. 4 months they stayed here. Lots of money they have spent. But even we could not reach Indian Embassy at Dhaka. They were not picking up the call, neither mail nor nothing. No connection. That was the
Ma'am,
thing.
It's
the
a
global
very
situation is
specific
also very
issue.
the global, strategic issue, the neighborhood issues are different. So some of them would have also have played into this. Let us not read too much into it to say that
Okay, sir.
the operation company was wrong.
I understand, sir. I
Trust them that
understand.
we would have done it with all good intent.
Sir.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, sir. Wasim this side.
Thank you.
Actually, sir, it's a problem with many hospitals where the committees are asking something more apart from the act requirement and all. What I feel is like whatever the act says, and the committee has to take a pragmatic approach towards each case, not asking unnecessarily thing. Creating a problems for the patient sometime. It is a problem with some hospitals in different parts of the country, but again, it's a state subject. Health is a state subject. The committee can act accordingly, but it's a problem there, sir. It's there in India.
I don't know that statement, Wasim, that you made that committees are asking arbitrary. I mean, I somehow feel that they're very seasoned people. They're looking to, safeguard the system, the patients. If they ask for something, prepare for it. I told you there's a parent-ego state. They are directive. They are the final word. Where is the problem? And they are responsible for if they ask for it, and tomorrow something goes wrong because of what they asked. They are responsible. But if they say that this is a requirement and it is not illegal to do it, it's just a new documentary requirement. I think as facilitators, look at how you can do it. Do not try and sort of dig in your heels. Where is it written, sir? Everything cannot be written in the law. Please understand that laws cannot be made too tight, and then the laws will be difficult to execute, and then people will suffer. So trust them. They would have reasons to ask for it. and look at it with little maturity and sensitivity. Possibly you'll see the answer and make it a habit to do it. It'll become part of your routine.
Interesting. Anybody else wants to unmute themselves?
Pallavi, may I?
Yeah, Sujata, please.
Thank you, Lieutenant General Behera, sir, for this talk and really impressive. And apart from legality, as Pallavi said, documentation, it gave us a complete different view how this whole case has to be looked into it. My question is, for example, like in recent times, the applications which are rejected by the authorization committee for whatsoever the reason, it has become a new trend that such applications are directly going to the court for as like writ applications. And sometimes, are like most of the times, the court orders are, coming, which are seem to be in favor of the patients, or like whatever, basically against the authorization committee's decision. So in such cases, how authorization committees can enforce their autonomy or like validate their decisions why this application was rejected? Because like of late, this has become a new trend. I don't know about how it is in Indraprastha Apollo, like any papers are going to court, but there are hundreds of cases filed in recent times against authorization committee's response over transplant approvals.
Yes, ma'am. Firstly, a court's scope of decision in matters of law extend much beyond the boundaries of the authorization committee. Authorization committee is bounded by the act and the rules, whereas the court has huge scope to go beyond that, interpret it, and a court judgment is specific to that case. A court judgment is not for all subsequent cases. They do not become precedent for the subsequent cases. To say that the authorization committee's rejection has been, sort of turned down by the court, so is the case in the case of a high court's decision is turned down by the Supreme Court. So does it mean the something is wrong with the High Court? No, the High Court has done its job. So we all work within the mandates that it is given to us, and there are those oversights. And that is the greatness of the system. There are oversights. Yes, it makes the system more bureaucratic and all that. Also understand that we are gone into a litigious society. Court cases are filed at the drop of a hat, but these cases, our patients are suffering. So they won't, go into a legal muddle when there is a life at stake. So they would be genuinely aggrieved. And the authorization committee is being also monitored by the state. I mean, why is it that their cases are being turned down? And the authorization committee would have reasons to do it. So maybe there is a scope to look into it, into the law. Is there a scope to change things? Yes, I'm aware that there are some processes going on to sort of further refine it. But just because a court sort of overrules the authorization committee decision does not mean that the authorization committee changes the way it functions. It has been given the task. Where is the authorization committee composition decided is in the THOTA. That tells it these are the set of rules that within which you function. If they go beyond that, again there'll be court cases. How did you go beyond that? So I don't see anything wrong. That is the greatness of the system where we have checks, we have oversights. And there are Supreme Courts, and then somebody can go and appeal in the Supreme Court. So I don't see anything wrong, and in a court judgment does not mean that the authorization committee has to comply with the court judgment. That is the requirement of law. Otherwise, there'll be contempt. But does not mean that next time a similar situation comes, the authorization committee quotes that judgment and decides like the way the court did it. Our understanding of the application of law is not good as the lordships. Let us not try and become courts. Let us function, let the authorization committee function within the mandate that it has been given. Let the court, function in their domain where they have amazingly different kind of understanding of law, which we are not.
Thank you, sir. So in such cases, for example, as you said, if something goes wrong in such case, like where any problem arises in the future for that particular case, who takes the ownership then?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I was unclear on what was your.
Okay, so there was a transplant application which was basically rejected by the authorization committee for their own genuine reason, and it went to the court, and the court directions came in favor of the patients. So now the application, I mean, the approval was granted, so the transplant has taken place. In case if something goes wrong in the future with that particular application, for example, it comes out as like a paid donation or transplant. There
I
was
don't think the authorization committee can be held responsible. Please understand that, because they have, see, all that is why meticulousness in documentation, even the slightest of hesitation should be recorded. We are somehow very economical with our way that we record our decisions. Decisions are not recorded for today. Please remember, the decisions are recorded on files for posterity. You may not be there to defend it. You may not be there to explain it. Therefore, you must context of explaining that. So if things go wrong, there's somebody else. It will be examined in its entirety. They will see that the authorization committee gave a decision and it went to the court, and the court said do it despite the authorization committee having rejected. Something has gone wrong. Authorization committee cannot be held responsible. So
exactly, but sometimes the hospitals are the treating team and the coordinators are held responsible in such cases, and that's where.
I would not like to, as I said, my presentation was not about the functioning of any hospital, but it is very unfair to pin the blame on a coordinator. What you say has gone beyond the domain of the hospital, beyond the authorization committee, to a court. So let it be examined from that perspective.
So I have a question, General Behera. When I was part of the authorization committee, I was the NGO representative. And I truly believe that my role was really to look at the donor interest, because everything else, there were people to take care of. There was a lawyer who was looking at the documents, and there were other people, Now, I always thought that the whole focus of every meeting was on that. And my attempts to bring in even the focus on donor was आपको किसी ने force तो नहीं किया, आप अपनी मर्जी से करें. It was done in such a, that's not how consent is looked at, how autonomy is looked at. So if you bring in your behavioral models, how could I have played my role a little bit more stronger? Because I kept getting sidelined. I kept getting cornered in the larger legality and documents and the whole effort of the committee to make the transplant happen legally.
Ma'am, it's a very complex question. See, please understand that interpersonal behavior in committees would be dependent on the set of members at that time. See, communication fails. Even the family, it fails. It's on simple matters. I mean, which is the toothpaste we want to use? I don't like it, so things go wrong.
I agree.
So here, yes, harmonious work condition in the authorization committee, openness to suggestions by the chairman who keeps that environment. Again, I said I don't want to comment on how authorization committee should function. I mean, I am no authority to suggest that. But if I am a leader in an organization, in that I'm in authorization, I'm not even the chairman. The first thing is openness. The minute you have openness, you get all kinds of views, and the decision making goes through a very robust assessment. Final call could be the chairman's, and there is nothing written key. Should it be a consensus view, or should it be a vote, or can be overruled, dissent note? To avoid the complexity, people try and see, can we have a consensus view? I think that would be the case. I don't know other people.
Yeah, it's usually that.
How it's done. But it also depends. See, now, point is, how does that individual who had problem with the other members, what kind of ego states that did that individual function from? Was her assessment about the quadrants of the personality correct. So
So
don't always.
not so much the personality, the process.
The first thing is, most of the time we don't assess ourselves, and we
True.
fail at that. Fail at
True,
that,
true,
and
true.
we don't understand. We are not honest about our. Pallavi, I have no. I mean, I'm not commenting on you personally.
I
It's
know, no,
just
of course, of course, yeah.
yeah.
I completely.
So yeah. It is. Have I made the correct assessment? Have I come prepared? Is my communication getting the desired impact? It's a rotten luck if you are surrounded by some very unpleasant people. But then committees would be decided on the basis of some people who be able to give right decision. But I would look at it from my perspective. Have I assessed myself? Have I used those tools of organizational behavior, transaction analysis? Can I improve? Unfortunately, we don't use it, and it is only after repeated use that it
Yeah,
becomes a habit.
true,
Otherwise,
true. Mhm.
very you struggle कि कहाँ लिखा है कि उस पेज में कैसा है, अच्छा ये ऐसा है तो I should talk like
यही
this.
सब में रह जाता है थोड़ा सा.
It will not happen that way. You need to practice it even with the sabji wala. You
Yes.
need to
With your
practice it
maids, with your everybody.
home, at
Mm.
home with your wife, with your daughter, with your father. And all these tools are great facilitators of harmony in interpersonal relationships. Often we expect the other person to behave properly with me. So again, no personal sort of comment on how it went with you, but those are views that how I would look at my team or how I would engage with a group of people. The idea is, can I impress upon them regarding my credentials and credibility? I have to work very hard to be knowledgeable. I have to work very hard to be articulate. Nobody has the attention span and time to listen to verbosity. Can I be very crisp in my communication and my articulation with the right use of words, tact, diplomacy, and everything? It's a huge subject, and that is how I thought it. I'll finish in 40 minutes. It went to 1 hour, and just imagine I'm no specialist, and
Yeah.
volumes are there on this. And I think this one aspect somewhere needs to fit into the training curriculum of
So much.
our.
I so strongly believe that, and especially after listening to you. If somebody has a pressing question or a comment, otherwise we have gone beyond our stipulated time. Does anybody have anything to say before we thank General Behera for a absolutely fantastic presentation? And I think it deserves so much more time. It could be a workshop on its own. It's and I hope you're working towards creating a module.
Me? No, I'm no specialist. I mean, people like you who are from the psychology background, you should be sort of, and with your kind of long association with all these processes, you are best. I'm not saying that I will not. I'll be too happy to contribute what little I understand about this, because all this goes towards building up the capability of the transplant processes, the coordinators, and everyone. I would love to be part of it, but I know my limitations, and we need domain experts in this. So
Yeah. Thank you so much, General Behera. This has been a very, very interesting and it has given a very different perspective to this whole process. And I chose to step out of the committee after some months. I'm actually very tempted to join one now and interact with this lens and with this knowledge. So thank you so much, sir, for being with
yeah,
us.
I
And
got carried away.
it's been an absolute pleasure hosting.
I got carried away and went on beyond the time thing, but
I
it is
think
always
it
good
is
to
a
talk.
topic that
Yes, and
and are there any questions? I think no.
so
They're just
thankful
saying
for
thank you
you.
to you.
Yeah, for the opportunity to have engaged with such a wonderful lot of people who are so important to this whole system of transplantation in this country.
Sure.
Pallavi,
Sure.
thank you. And thank
Thank
you
you so
everyone
much.
who is out there. Can I leave?
Yes, sir. Thank you so
Okay,
much. Thank you.
Jai Hind everyone.
Yeah.